residents are partners. There you go. All of our residents are partners in our program, so it kind of aligns incentive for the entire group. And so I think that's kind of the key component to what we do.
Yeah, it's cool. And for y'all just joining in, welcome back to another episode of Unconventional Money Moves podcast. I got Daniel Dorfman. He is the co-founder of Roots Investment in Hotlanta, ATL, Georgia. And essentially what they're doing is real estate investment trust, helping people and showing them how to invest in these sort of projects that most people wouldn't have access to. So I found it interesting, Daniel, how did this happen? Because you said your mission is to like help a million people or something like that. Tell me about that.
Yeah, for sure. So thanks for having me. Excited to kind of talk through what we're doing at Roots. And yeah, our mission is to help a million people build wealth through our platform, and that includes our investors who can come. Anybody is able to come and invest into Roots through our website, starting with as little as $100, and kind of get exposure to what we would call like private level, accredited level returns in real estate, but to everybody in terms of like availability. And then the other piece about what we do is we help all of our residents who live with us build wealth as well. And it's the model of aligning the interest between landlord and residents that have given us the ability to deliver the returns that we've seen over the last 2 years. So it's been really exciting to watch.
Yeah, totally. And for people out there, like a lot of people own a house. What could you explain the difference between like owning a home versus investing into the projects that you're currently doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So we always encourage home ownership, right? It's one of the, American dreams that's out there, right? And it's a great way to build wealth for long term. And there's some wonderful tax advantages to selling that home. What we do is basically a substitute for two paths. One would be if you're looking to go and place money into your second home, maybe that's an investment property for you. So when you would invest with us, you kind of get all of the pluses and the positive notes of investing in real estate at scale versus kind of tying all your eggs in one basket. If you were to buy your own investment property, if that makes sense. And we take care of all like the headache components of it, whether that be the property management side of things, the repairs and maintenance, the leasing. All of those things get handled by professionals in the industry who do this full time for a living instead of part time on the weekends. And what we're seeing is our investors are getting that opportunity to live that dream of having that investment into real estate, but not having to deal with the headaches.
Yeah, a lot of people end up turning into, I think Home Depot calls them like weekend warriors. Like you go to Home Depot on Saturday morning, get what you need, and you work on the house on the weekends. And when I feel like a lot of people, especially nowadays, like rentals and flipping has become extremely mainstream. However, when it comes to building wealth, it's equally as important to invest into things that you can place your capital and just let them grow and compound over time. And I believe that's what y'all are doing. That's a little bit different than what people might be seeing with like Grant Cardone. And I think Grant Cardone might be doing what you're doing a little bit, but what's his name? Like Ryan Pineda, or I don't know his name, but like house flipping and
Yeah,
whatnot.
so there's quite a few different models out there, right? In terms of, you know, what the structures are. Our REIT is what's called like a Reg A offering. So that's like what gives us the ability to offer it to accredited and non-accredited. I think what it boils down to for us, and like kind of where you'll see the difference isn't necessarily that our real estate choices in terms of like what we're doing on the real estate side are so different. It's that what we're doing on the resident side and having that resident who is part of this journey with us and is invested in the fund side by side, and giving them these incentives for paying rent on time and for taking care of the home. And what it's creating is a world where our renewal rates are much higher than industry averages. Our turnover costs when a resident moves out, the cost it takes us to get it ready for the next resident is also about a third of the industry average. And what that overall outlay looks like for our investors is we are, over the last 2 years, our annual average is about 16% IRR. I don't know of any of the other funds that have been able to produce that. So it's a different model in terms of how we treat the residents, and it's returning better because of it, which is cool.
Did you like create this concept? Did you find it in a
Yeah.
book? Like, tell us about that.
Yeah, so this concept was kind of built and birthed from like my years of experience in the real estate industry. I've been investing in real estate since 2009. I kind of did it as a parallel to my other career until 2017, when my real estate outpaced my regular career capital. So when that happened, my wife and I started our own small retail agency where we could, help people buy and sell homes. Built that team out, and that team still is around today. We got 11 agents on that team and sell a good amount of homes in the Atlanta area. But my focus kind of from day one was always to kind of go and get investment dollars to deploy into the Atlanta market. And so I did a lot of syndicates from 2018 to 2020, where I would bring in capital from LA and New York and put it into kind of real estate in the small multifamily space in Atlanta. And when 2020 kind of hit, I had a little extra time, just like everybody else, I think, and started thinking about what the next phase of what we did would look like, and not just for me, but for our residents, right? Like I was actually in a pretty good spot during COVID, a fortunate spot. A lot of our residents were not, right? And when you started looking at it across the board, how do you make things a little bit more equitable in this transaction, right? Because real estate's this weird thing, and I'm pretty sure it's the only industry where it's like this in most cases, where the customer, who would be your renter, is not treated at all like a customer, and they're usually never right in a landlord situation. And it's this weird relationship that causes like adverse friction from day one versus being a partner. Like you're in that building, if they're just committed to the success of it as much as you are, it really exciting things happen. And so that's kind of how it all came to be. Is we decided, we had this hypothesis that if it's a partner in the building instead of a tenant, that the building overall as an investment will perform better. And over 2 years, 2.5 years now, it's been leading that direction for sure.
As a tenant dealing with a landlord, it's almost as if the landlord, sometimes you have good ones, and sometimes you have ones that feel like they're almost like on top of you. It's like, you are renting from me, you must do as I do, rather than what happens is as a tenant, you're like, you know what? I'm just not going to take care of the place, and good luck coming after me, because the court costs, attorney costs, things like that not only take time, unfortunately, are more costly than just dealing with it. So it seems like you found a hole in the industry that you're looking to fill.
Right. Yeah. It's kind of just like flipping the script a little bit. When we talk to our residents before they come into one of our buildings, we're talking to them about, hey, you're going to build wealth while you rent here. And we want you to leave with more money than you came in with. And that's a different conversation than, most of the renting environments out there. And, it's not lease to own. We're not, putting a carrot in front of our residents saying, hey, if you split the repair bills with us, and, if you have a life-changing, an increase in income, you can afford this house in 2 years. We're just simply saying, you're going to move in here. You're going to help us take care of it regardless, usually. Let's give you some incentive, and let's give you some partnership in it. So
Now you said you started this in 2009. Did this happen on accident? Because
Mm,
that's
two-
quite a good time.
2000, yeah, I started investing in 2009, not the
Okay.
company itself. This concept didn't come until 2021.
Let's
So
talk about investing. So you picked pretty much super ideal time to start buying.
yeah, I sometimes you get lucky. And
Yeah.
that was kind of the case. I was just kind of freshly out of school and had a decent sized little transaction um, with my first company and had an opportunity to deploy some capital. And I could have chose the stock market, but ended up choosing a real estate opportunity. And that kind of opened my eyes to the asset class and how it worked. And I just started diving in almost every moment on the side. I just really like the idea of real estate and how it operates as an investment vehicle, and it's just tangible for me, which I loved. So
What was the first deal? Do you remember?
yeah, we bought two homes, and I don't know if you're familiar with the Atlanta area, but there's an area called Grant Park by the zoo, and we bought two homes there in 2009 for a combined total of 130 grand. Um, and today they're worth a lot more than that. But yeah, it was a very good timing situation for us. Honestly, we bought the first ones and thought we would flip them and busted the budget and had to rent them. So it was a good lesson on the flip side, and we still own one of them today. So
So that was a happy little accident going over budget. So you had to hold it for the
yep,
long term a little bit.
yeah, exactly. So I went over budget, ended up renting it and realizing like, oh, that's maybe a better use of what we want to do, because at the time we were just looking at it as um kind of this like wealth creator down the line for us in terms of a passive income generator later in life, right? So from 2009 to still I guess today, my wife and I basically put capital into real estate whenever we could. So
Now, are you just managing the one place that you have? Are you looking for more? Walk us through what's going on there
yeah,
with
so
Roots.
yeah, so the Roots Fund today has we just surpassed 24 million raised through our online platform from over 3,000 investors. We have 88 properties in the fund, totaling about 128 doors. And so as we continue to scale the operation and the fund, we'll continue to add assets to it. So we manage, it from soup to nuts, from investment to real estate operations.
So as let's just say hypothetically, I'm gonna become a partner in one of your buildings. Like what does that
Mhm.
process look like? Does anyone just get in? Is there like a strict like application? Like because it's
Yeah,
very different than your like, hey, do you have enough money? All right, cool, you're in.
yeah. So from a resident standpoint, we've been in a fortunate position in Atlanta, and I think it's pretty common across the country right now that it's not a hard thing to find a renter at the moment. The only difference between our like application process, I would say, and others is we do talk about building wealth. And some residents, they hear about it and they're like, "This is so cool. I I want to build wealth." Like we just had our first resident after a year and a half. She moved out. She moved out of her original deposit was I believe $1,800, and she moved out with a little over like 4,100 and was able to go buy her first place. And so, um, for us, when we're having conversations with residents on the front end, it is obviously about checking the boxes that normal landlords would look for, but it's also about finding people who are excited about like building wealth and kind of thinking about that next like 3 to 5 years for themselves. Because they could live anywhere, right? Like they could find a place to go live. But for us, it's more important that we find someone who is engaged and wants to be engaged in this solution, because if we don't have an engaged resident, our program it doesn't perform as well. So
So if I give you your security deposit, how does that work to help your partners build that wealth rather than It's just like, hey, I gave you 1,800, you give me 4,000, great. But it's
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
where's the money actually coming from, so that people could understand how this is a
yeah,
legitimate investment rather than just I'm taking money from my right pocket and put it into my left pocket.
yeah, absolutely. So from a resident's point of view, we do not take security deposits. We give you the
Mhm.
opportunity to invest what would have been your deposit into the fund under your name. And so from day one, you've invested into the REIT. So you own, a portion of the 88 properties, and you also get paid dividends off of that when we have them. And you'll kind of see that growth of the fund happen as you've lived with us. So from day one, if you did nothing else but put your investment in with us last January, your deposit would have grown about 16% since this January if you had moved out, right? And that's with doing none of the other opportunities that we present, which are the opportunity to get a rebate of rent every 3 months when you pay on time. Uh, we call it be a good neighbor, so like no police activity at the building. And the most important thing for us as asset managers is the video. So all of our residents once every 3 months, if they want their rebate, they do a quick video for us inside and outside of the unit. We're not looking for like their stuff. All we're looking for is for them to point out small like preventative maintenance items like small leaks, little cracks in the wall, those types of things that traditionally in rentals they get overlooked, right? And it's because the renter usually is like, hey, I don't, I don't really care about this property as much as to call this in, and it's not bothering me, so I'm not going to bother the landlord. When I move out, they can deal with it. But those are the issues. Those small leaks are really the fundamental issues to what cause like huge turn costs, because those cause mold. They cause like you having to replace full cabinets. There's a ton of things that happen if you let like basically drips and small leaks happen and occur. They compound over time. And so, when you move somebody out and they've had, a faucet dripping underneath their cabinet for 6 months, it causes real big issues, right? And so, what we're trying to do is help our residents, have our residents help us just point those out so that we can come fix them for $50 instead of fixing them for 3 grand and a mold abatement later, right? So, that's kind of the model.
You're almost like Mr. Rogers, just being a good neighbor.
Right. It's a good neighbor policy for sure.
Good neighbor policy. So for anyone that may not understands what's going on, it's basically almost, I mean, the simplest way I could think about it is it's almost a high yield interest account for your money. You put it in and then you let it grow over time. Have you ever had a deal where you haven't made money or the return hasn't been that great to start out with and it turned around?
So because it's a portfolio investment, it's kind of like looking at like similar like an ETF, right? So when you invest with us, it's not like you're picking that one property, right? So it's going across the fund, 88 properties, and that's growing typically every quarter. And so yeah, we've had a couple, we had a deal, a property which we sold out of the fund last year, where one of the residents who's living there pointed out something that looked like mold. We found it. It was mold. We moved them out. Had our team go out, cleaned it up, and at the end we had refurbished it. So it actually ended up being a great sell for us. We sold it, and everybody in the fund made money. But we, because it's a collective group of properties, it really diversifies the investment versus like being hooked to like one property. And just for clarity purposes, we only have 80, like 127 residents who are in our buildings. We have over 3,000 investors who come to the site every day to invest capital into the portfolio. So you don't have to be a resident to invest with us.
How did you get so many investors?
Marketing.
Marketing?
So yeah, I mean, we utilize a lot of different partnerships with different newsletters have worked out well for us, and then just consistently delivering the best experience we can in terms of word of mouth. There's not a lot of real estate investments that you can make and feel good that they're making an impact. Usually it's the other way around. So We found that a lot of our investors are loving the idea of making an impact on that resident's life and like having a little bit of a different model. And the returns have been great historically, right? So it's really a win-win for everybody at that point.
Yeah, and you mentioned earlier you're doing your investing through Regulation A, and that gives you access to people who are non-accredited and accredited. So accredited is typically someone who has $1 million net worth and or making at least $250,000 a year,
Mhm.
and that would be for I don't know as much as you do. I think that would be like Regulation D. Would that be like private placements that you can always have accredited
Yep.
investors? Okay, so like Regulation D, that's private placements. That's typically where you got to have money in order to invest. So you went Regulation A to allow this to be more of a mainstream investment. Was that a decision because of the mission, economics, all the above? What led you
Um,
to do that
it,
instead?
the mission, we really wanted to find a place where residents could invest and participate, and you just can't do that in Reg D. You know, it's a challenge. It was a challenge going through the process to get, you know, approved for the Regulation A segment. And um, in our opinion, it was well worth it because it does drive our mission forward of giving people this opportunity to invest in real estate that they didn't have before. And you know, there are publicly traded REITs, but they're so feed out that they really don't deliver real estate like returns, even if you look at them over the last, you know, 10 years. And the other component to publicly traded REITs is that they move with the market, which isn't the case of how real estate should move, in my opinion, at least.
What
You
kind
know,
what kind of fees are in those that people need to watch out for rather than invest with you?
yeah, I mean, so a lot of like the other Regulation A offerings out there will have a placement fee. They'll also have what's called an asset under management fee. So they'll charge a small fee for the investment that you've put into their REIT, which is always an interesting thing to me because they're not actually managing your money. You've decided to put your money into the REIT. So having an asset under management fee is interesting. There's also a lot of like different types of like carry costs and waterfalls that sometimes slip in terms of like, hey, you've hit, you know, 10% return. Now the general partner of the fund is going to take 50 cents of every dollar so that, you know, that's how they would make their money on the back end. And to be fair, those are still great. There's some of those that are still great deals, right? And everybody, you know, needs to make some money somewhere. So like that's not me saying that that component of it's, you know, backwards or anything like that. I think, you know, if you're a fund manager and you can deliver great returns and still take all those fees, fantastic. But a lot of cases, by the time they get done with the fees, you end up at like a, you know, a 6 to 8% return, um, which is fine, but you know, it's a little different.
When you own private investments, it's always easier to control what you can control versus the public market. It's going to do what the markets are doing, regardless of what you're putting into the properties. Now, of the properties that you have, are they just houses, apartment complexes, everything? And where do you see you purchasing more of, or possibly even starting to build, since there is a shortage of homes in America?
Yeah, so we are purchasing primarily in like the small multifamily and single family asset class. It's something that we know very well from our experience, like just over time. And quite frankly, the multifamily space is very interesting, right? It went from when we were having like extremely low rates in 21 to being, you know, just extremely priced out because capital was so cheap to then essentially a halt being put on all transactions because the rates got so high. And now we're in this interesting spot where there's a lot of building that's happening around that space. There's a lot of defaults that are happening around that space. And so for us, we're going to keep doing what we know, which is this single family asset class. We're not doing any new builds at the moment. We have thought about it, but really we like workforce housing and we like the opportunity to help people in the like 60K to 100K resident like household income. And to do that, you really can't build right now based on cost, right? Like the reason that like all these buildings are, they go in saying, yeah, we're gonna have affordable rent and we're gonna have this section be affordable. And then just based on cost alone from labor to materials, you end up in a spot where like you can't really produce an affordable product for renting. So we like the idea of always buying existing homes, refurbishing them, making them nice, and then helping to kind of make an affordable product versus trying to build it.
That's awesome. Creating win-win relationships, and the fund is what you said, 17, 20 million now.
So we've got a little bit over 24 million invested into it. Yes.
Starting from
July of
basically
20.
nothing.
Yeah, July of 21. Actually, we hadn't built our platform out until so last year, this time, January last year, we had 105 investors. And it raised, I believe, like $9 million. And so over last year, we had a pretty good year of people coming to the platform, learning about what we do, and investing with us. So very excited to kind of keep that momentum going, hopefully, and continue to help our investors and our residents build wealth.
So if I want to invest, I go to your website, which is what?
Investwithroots.com.
All right, investwithroots.com. I put in an application. What does that process look like for like if I wanted to throw
Yeah.
some cash your way?
All right. So definitely do it. We'd love to have you. Just kidding. But it's similar to like if you were to go open like an Acorns or a Robinhood or an E-Trade account. Very similar process. You hit the invest button, it walks you through all the paperwork, all the steps. We've got some unique tools on our website that help you kind of visualize what returns might look like based on historic performance. And like all of course, like our offering circular and all that good stuff is there as well. But people can go to our website today and invest anywhere from $100 to $100,000 in 5 to 10 minutes. So
Push. What is it? Push, click, get REIT.
yeah, there you go. We only have one REIT and one product on there. So
Makes it easy decision making. Well, Daniel, you're doing it all in the real estate investment trust world. Appreciate you having on the Unconventional Money Moves podcast. We'll see everyone next time. All right. Bye, everyone.
yeah, thanks for having me.